Welcome. Today we will discuss a beautiful lyric by the Romantic poet William Wordsworth. The poem is titled The Solitary Reaper. It is one of the most famous lyrics written by Wordsworth and describes the melodious singing of a girl from the Scottish Highlands who is singing while she is doing her job of reaping the crop. First, let us take a look at the poet. William Wordsworth was born on the 7th of April 1770 in Cockermouth in England, and he died of pleurisy on the 23rd of April 1850. He is one of the most important English poets and a founder of the Romantic movement of English literature. Romantic poetry is a genre of writing that focuses on emotions and imaginations. Wordsworth became known as a lake poet because of the area where he lived, which is renowned for its beautiful wild landscapes, charming pastures, and countless lakes. He was often called a nature poet because of his emphasis on the connection between humans and the natural world. He became widely successful and was named Poet Laureate of England in 1843. He focused his poetry on nature, children, the poor, and he expressed himself in a very natural and simple language. Wordsworth, along with another poet, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, ushered in the Romantic age of literature. This trend was followed by Shelley, Keats, Blake, Byron, Southey, Burns, and other poets. Wordsworth wrote a collection of poems called Lyrical Ballads, which was published in 1798. He also wrote many other famous poems. Among them was The Prelude, which is generally considered to be his magnum opus or major work. He was Poet Laureate from 1843 till his death in 1850. He was predominantly a nature poet. Nature was a living personality to him, a living entity to him. He was one of the lake poets along with Southey and Coleridge. The lake poets are named after the Lake District in the northwest of England where they lived. This area is known for its beauty. Let us learn something about the poem. The poem is written in the form of a ballad. A ballad is a poetic form that narrates or tells a story. In the poem, the speaker draws attention to the melodious singing of the Scottish or Highland girl who is working in the fields. The beauty of her song is enhanced by its melancholy nature, even though the language, that is Gaelic, is not known to the poet, but still he is enraptured by its haunting beauty. The poem was written on the 5th of November in 1805 and published in 1807 in the collection of poems which was simply called Poems. It was inspired by the poet's trip to Scotland in 1803 with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth, though some critics believe that he took inspiration from a friend's experience and did not personally hear the girl. It is written in the first person and can be described as a pastoral poem as it describes a scene in the rural countryside. The poem reiterates the idea of Keats that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. In other words, the poem conveys the idea that a beautiful thing or object will continue to give joy always, as it will always remain beautiful and thus provide joy or happiness to the owner. Now let us study the poem. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself, stop here or gently pass. Alone she cuts and binds the grain, and sings a melancholy strain. Oh, listen, for the vale profound is overflowing with the sound. Now from the very first line, the speaker draws our attention to the girl by asking us to look at her. He captivates our attention with the words, behold her, or asking us to look at her. Also, from the very first line, the solitary nature of the girl is emphasized. He uses the word single in the first line, solitary in the second line, singing by herself in the third line, and then again he uses the word alone. All these indicate that the girl is alone in the entire surroundings and there is no audience to her singing. Yon solitary Highland lass. Yon means there. Highland means a girl from the mountainous areas. Lass means a girl in colloquial English. She is reaping and singing by herself. Reaping is the process of cutting the ready grain. By herself, she is singing for her own pleasure and not for an audience. Stop here or gently pass. Again, the poet involves the reader in the scene and addresses him saying, you either stop here or pass gently so as not to disturb the girl. Alone she cuts and binds the grain. This line means that she is working alone at her job of cutting the crop or grain and tying it in bushels, binding it in bushels, and sings a melancholy strain. And while at her work, the girl is singing a song, and the song is a sad song or a melancholy song. Oh, listen, for the vale profound is overflowing with the sound. Again, the speaker draws the attention of the reader to the girl, the Scottish girl who is singing and reaping, and telling us that the entire valley or the vale, which is profound or deep, is overflowing with her singing. It is absolutely filled with her singing and echoing with her singing. The speaker draws the attention of the readers to the Scottish girl who is reaping and singing alone. The fact that she is alone is emphasized by the use of the words single, solitary, alone, and by herself. We can picture the reaper in a beautiful landscape and how she must have captivated the attention of the listener with no other distraction from her song. The poet addresses the speaker and urges him not to disturb the girl's singing and asks to either listen to her singing or pass by without disturbing her. The entire valley is echoing with the girl's melodious singing. It is common for sounds to echo in hilly areas and to be heard up to great distances. That is what is happening here. The entire valley is resonating with her singing. It is echoing in the entire valley. Here there is a repetitive use of the consonant sound L in behold, single, solitary, Highland lass, alone, etc. This adds consonants, while the repetitive use of the vowel sound O adds assonance. See the repetitive use of O in behold, yawn, solitary, profound, stop, or alone, O, night, O, and then overflowing, etc. Second stanza, Wordsworth compares her song to the singing of two melodious birds, the cuckoo and the nightingale. He says, no nightingale did ever chaunt more welcome notes to weary bands of travellers in some shady haunt among Arabian sands. The word chaunt is an archaic or old spelling of the word chant, and chant means to recite or speak in chorus. The poet feels that such melodious singing has never been heard before, not even from the birds that are known for their beauty. He says that even the nightingale bird has never chanted or sang more beautiful songs. The word welcome means pleasant, and weary bands means a group of tired travellers. No nightingale did ever chant means so far as of now, till now, no nightingale has ever sang in such beautiful notes. Notes that are welcome to weary bands. That means notes that sound very pleasant to tired travellers. These travellers have been travelling for long distances in the hot sands of Arabian desert to reach this shady haunt, or a place frequently visited by travellers and one that provides the restful shade of trees in an oasis. So the notes or the song of the nightingale bird is made doubly melodious to these tired travellers. Firstly, because of their intrinsic melody, and secondly, because it indicates the end of their fatigue and a place of rest among shady trees. However, the girl's singing is even more melodious than that of the nightingales. The poet does not make this comparison evidently, but it is implied. A voice so thrilling never was heard in springtime from the cuckoo bird, breaking the silence of the seas among the farthest Hebrides. The poet continues to say that a more exciting and joyous sound has as yet not been heard from the cuckoo bird that sings joyously in the spring season. The reaper's singing surpasses the thrilling sound of the cuckoo bird too. Again, it is implied that the girl's singing is better than that of the cuckoo birds. Hebrides is a group of islands to the northwest of Scotland. The poet exaggerates a bit to say that the clarity of the girl's singing carries the sounds very far across the seas, so far that it can be heard in the farthest island of the Hebrides, which are a group of islands off the west coast of Scotland. Here the poet adds a romantic touch by introducing far-off places. Once again, there is consonance as the N sounded is repeated in no nightingale, chant, notes, bands, haunt, no, ne'er, etc. There is also assonance in the repetitive use of O as in no, more, notes, of, etc. So in the second stanza, the beauty of the girl's singing enraptures the poet and compels him to compare it with the melodious singing of the nightingale and the cuckoo birds. The singing seems to be travelling to the farthest Hebrides Islands. He adds a romantic touch by introducing far-off places. The third stanza has the poet wondering about the theme or the subject matter of the girl's singing. The poet is an Englishman and the girl is singing in Gaelic language, which is the official language of Scotland. So, the poet does not understand what the girl is singing about. He asks, "Will no one tell me what she sings?" Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old unhappy far-off things and battles long ago. Or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today, some natural sorrow, loss or pain that has been and may be again? In the first line, the poet makes an unsuccessful attempt at finding out the subject matter of her song. He asks, "Will no one tell me what she sings?" Now this is a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is one which is not asked for the sake of an answer, but to make a dramatic effect or to make a statement. The poet answers his own questions because there is nobody else to answer that question, and he suggests a number of possibilities. He says, perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for all unhappy far-off things. In other words, he feels that possibly, perhaps, possibly, her sad music or the plaintive numbers flow because she is remembering some old event, old unhappy far-off things. She is remembering some old event that occurred in the past or a battle that happened a long time ago. And maybe she has lost someone dear in that battle. He further explores the possibility of a sad theme and says that maybe the subject matter of a song is more ordinary or humble, a familiar matter of today. It could be some natural sorrow, loss or pain. That means it could be a daily event, a natural event, a common event that happens with everybody, that has happened in the past and has the possibility of happening again. That has been and may be again. Now we come to the last stanza. Whatever the theme, the maiden sang as if her song could have no ending. I saw her singing at her work and over the sickle bending. I listened, motionless and still, and as I mounted up the hill, The music in my heart I bore, long after it was heard no more. In the last stanza, the poet quits guessing about the theme of the girl's song and says that irrespective of the theme, she sang with ineffable and unabated enthusiasm. She sang as if her song could have no ending, or as if her song would never come to a close. He saw her singing at her work of cutting the crops and bending while cutting the grain, holding a sickle or a hook in her hand. You can see in the picture that the girl is holding a sickle in her hand. The effect of the girl's song on the listener is quite evidently explained in the last 4 lines. He says, I listened motionless and still. Motionless and still both mean the same thing, but the poet has used these words for dramatic effect to indicate that he gave all his attention to her singing and did not disturb her. And even when he left this pastoral landscape and climbed a hill, he could still hear her singing, not with his ears, but it echoed through his mind and heart. It happens with us also. Sometimes we hear a song and the notes of the song, we can remember them forever. It goes around in our heads and in our heart, and we can remember it throughout the day or sometimes even longer. The music in my heart I bore. Bore means that he carried the music in his heart even when he could not actually hear it. Now this experience again would be a fond memory for him and one that would always stay with him. Here again we can see Wordsworth carrying the same experience with him that he had when he saw the daffodils in the poem Daffodils. He carried with him a sight that would always give him pleasure when he would remember it. This sight would become a bliss of solitude for him, as it would make him happy whenever the scene would flash upon his inward eye, or, in other words, the scene would make him happy whenever he would remember it in solitude. Thus, through this poem, Wordsworth asserts that a beautiful object or experience always has the power to make a person happy, or in the words of Keats, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. With that, we come to an end of the discussion. Let's critically analyze the poem and take a look at the literary devices used. Each stanza is of 8 lines, and the rhyme scheme follows the pattern AB, AB, CC, DD till the end. The meter is a mixture of iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. The poet makes use of rhetorical questions. Examples are, will no one tell me what she sings? And that has been and maybe again? And familiar matter of today? The poet aptly and beautifully uses the metaphors of the cuckoo and nightingale birds to bring out the melodious nature of the girl's singing. There is consonance in lines such as some natural sorrow, loss or pain, where S is repeated, and the sound of M in or is it some more humble lay. Alliteration adds lyrical beauty to the poem. See the lines. Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow, and no nightingale did ever chant. The poet does not refrain from a bit of exaggeration also, especially in the lines, breaking the silence of the seas among the farthest Hebrides. The exaggeration becomes greater and becomes a hyperbole in "Oh, listen, for the vale profound is overflowing with the sound." Now all these features add to and enhance the beauty of this lyric. With that, we come to an end of the study of the Solitary Reaper. I hope you liked the lecture. Thank you.